mesmerised the crowd of onlookers. And there, in the benign waves lapping the small stretch of sand, a boater. Not a mark on it, the blue hair ribbon he'd pinched from her dresser that morning, still pristine. The gaping hollow in her stomach sliced its way to her heart, and Letty knew her beloved brother, Thorn Ludgrove Rawlings, was no more. 1. Sydney, 1911. Letty lay on her bed, eyes focused on the ceiling rose, waiting for her breathing to settle and the sweat to dry on her skin. She knew, down to the last second, how long it would take to rid herself of the flickering images. No matter what the papers described, no matter what the eyewitness reports and the scientific evidence suggested, the result was conclusive. A careless cigarette, and her brother was no more. She reached for her sketchbook and flicked through the pages to the last drawing she'd made. Thorn at the stern of the boat, his boater at a rakish angle, and his smile blazing in competition with the noonday sun. If only she'd done as she'd promised, and hadn't agreed to the ridiculous photograph to commemorate the insignificant achievements of the women's club. Perhaps if she'd made it to the wharf in time, Thorn wouldn't have lit the cigarette. She could imagine his impatience. She'd berated him hundreds of times for smoking in the boat. They both knew the dangers of a naked flame with the engine primed. They'd dreamt of shared adventures and exploration, made so many plans. The largest of them sat mocking her in the old stables, behind the row of terraces on Macquarie Street. Their future, their escape. And now she couldn't bring herself to lift the dust sheets covering the Model T Ford. She might as well lie buried beneath them. Better still, buried with Thorn beneath the open-armed angel in Waverley Cemetery. "Letitia, I wish to speak to you." She wiped away her tears and rolled off the bed, squinting into the early morning sun rising over the Botanic Gardens. Donning yesterday's black skirt and blouse, she hurried along the landing in answer to her mother's call. The creaking door echoed her silent groan as she swung it open. Her mouth clamped against the stale air, she waited for her eyes to adjust to the gloom. Pillows plumped, bed jacket neatly arranged, and breakfast tray balanced across her lap. Mrs. Miriam Rawlings lifted her lorgnette to her eyes and surveyed her daughter from head to toe. "I imagined you'd be up and breakfasted. The time for excuses is over. A routine must be established." Something Letty simply hadn't managed to do. Only Thorn made their privileged existence bearable, and since his accident she'd done very little other than mope around the house. Even Pater's cherished grandfather clock no longer ticked away the meaningless hours of her existence, its pendulum tied in place, marking the time of her brother's demise. The half-light softened Miriam's features, but failed to mask the perpetual shrewdness in her gaze. "I have made a decision." She patted the side of the bed, inviting her to sit. Unnerved by the unusual gesture, Letty parked herself on the corner of the bed, hands in lap, feet tucked to one side, seeking to present the picture expected, rather than suffer yet another diatribe about her shortcomings. "Letitia," Miriam murmured in a soft tone, the tone she used when she despaired her standards would ever be met, "you must come to terms with the situation. We can no longer leave matters to chance." Not this again. Not the endless discussion about Thorn's inheritance. "Have you not written again? I wrote before and after the funeral, and, as expected, she hasn't deigned to respond. Why would I write again?" A very good question, really. To the best of her knowledge, the ridiculous silence between the Ludgroves and the Maynards had been maintained for nigh on 30 years. Letty examined the cuff of her blouse. "To ensure Great-Aunt Olivia received your letter and knows of Thorn's passing." Great-Aunt Olivia Maynard, the sole orchestrator of the estrangement between the Ludgrove and the Maynard families. "I've procrastinated for too long." Miriam tapped her lorgnette against her teeth. "There's nothing for it. I shall have to make the journey." Letty squirmed under her gaze. "Shall I come with you?" "I'll take Connor's, drive down and spend the night in Wollombi. I believe there is a tolerable hotel there." She picked up her journal and leafed through the pages, letting out a